Good morning, everybody. I hope you all can hear me. Yeah, my name's Jeff Simons. Just to give you a little background on who I am an engineer or engineer. Either one you can call me. I've actually been in the assistive technology field for like 30 years, which does make me feel old. But kind of the reason I'm doing this presentation is I recently went through this with my in-laws who lived in their own home and the technology. My parents for a while were in their own home, and now my mom is in assisted living. So I'm going to talk a little bit also about some of the advantages and disadvantages that I saw. There's a lot of push for staying in your own home, which I think is a good thing, but there's some advantages to being in assisted living. Physically, I'm located just outside of Sacramento, and I do not sell any equipment. My job is to kind of present the options and recommend what's most appropriate but least cost. So, again, any questions, do feel free to stop and ask me as I go through. Probably pretty obvious to most of you, and unfortunately I don't think any of us are probably getting any younger that I know of, but vision is always decreasing, people's hearing, mobility, mental acuity, and this is kind of a big one that I see is resistance to new things. Some of these people that are in senior, in their own home and things like that, even trying to teach them how to use an iPad or some things we might think are pretty simple technology can be very overwhelming. I have a mother with dementia who can't figure out how to operate her cell phone or really even how to get messages at home, but that's an issue that we'll kind of talk about as well. But these are kind of the typical things that unfortunately we'll probably all be facing as we get older. I kind of broke this presentation down into 4 different areas, and here and I'm going to start with safety and security because I think that's probably the number one thing that most people, at least when they're in their home, they want to make sure that people are safe and whatnot. And then I'm going to kind of go through each one of these areas, health and wellness, communication, and independence, and some things like that. Now, when you're in your own home, oftentimes you are having a caregiver there, and my experience, it kind of gradually starts. You start getting somebody in maybe to help with meals and things like that, and over time it seems to increase, but a lot of times this caregiving person takes on these roles as well. They have to be making sure the person's safe, they have to help them with their independence. A lot of times if they're good, or not something good, they'll help them with their physical fitness and things like that. So a lot of times that person becomes responsible for a lot of these issues and things, and we'll talk more about that as well. I thought this was a good slide. I threw it in because it's been interesting as I watched both my parents and my in-laws aging in the process and things. And I know the presentation is staying in your own home, and I think that's an important part. A lot of people want to stay in their own home. I can give you my own observation of that is, unfortunately, sometimes people get a little more isolated with that. Can they get out? Can they see their friends? A lot of times my parents were in their own home, but a lot of their friends were getting older, and they couldn't get out much. And so their relationship was really with their caregivers. And I can tell you my parents moved into assisted living about 5-10 minutes from me now. And in some ways it's been very good because there's a lot of people their age. There's a lot of interaction with people their age. They're always having activities and things like that. I kind of equate it to, on a little different end, of kind of like going to college and living in the dorms. Little different end of that, but there's a lot of people their age, and there's always activities going on, and they're monitored. Like I say, we can talk more about that, but that's more of an observation from my own personal experience that I know there's a big push to stay in the home, and I think there's good reasons for that, but there may be a point when looking at the assisted living definitely has some advantages as well. So. Safety and security is probably most people's #1 concern, making sure in their own home, people they're safe and secure. And there's a lot of technology for that. Probably the first thing always in general is one of these fall protection type devices. Generally they work very well. Somebody's always monitoring them, meaning if you hit that button, it makes a call, and somebody is is monitoring, making sure they're safe and things like that. And they usually call somebody to have them come out and check on them, or they will call like an ambulance, that kind of thing. As you can kind of see with this, though, the somewhat disadvantage is obviously if you fall, you have to be aware enough to hit that button. And if you're unconscious or something like that, they're not necessarily going to know that you fell and some things like that. There are other type of fall protection technology that is out there that will even respond if you don't hit the button. And I can speak to this personally. My dad was in assisted living near us, and he had a number of falls, and they kept getting him and everything. And one night I went over to spend the night there just to kind of figure out why he was falling and what was causing all the problems. And I had his pendant, which looked just like this, in my pocket because he kept hitting it not accidentally. He didn't know what it was, and he would hit it. So I put it in my pocket and didn't really think much about it. Anyway, I ended up spending the night there, and I got tired, so I laid on the floor and didn't really realize this thing had a fall protection thing. Well, I laid on the floor, and in about 5 minutes, one of the attendants came walking in the room and was standing over me and saying, I said, no, I didn't fall. I just, laid down to sleep. But these things can actually detect when you've fallen, and you don't have to hit the button, which is a pretty nice feature to be aware of. So that's just something to consider when kind of looking at these different kinds of devices and things. And I'm kind of going up the technology scale here, meaning fairly simple things to, and you can kind of read these things. There are things that are monitor much more than just if they've fallen, and they keep track of people, what they're doing, what they've done. It's getting a little bit, if you will, Big Brother-ish, where they're actually kind of watching the people throughout the day. But there are varying levels of these monitoring systems, from just falling to, okay, if they, what kinds of activities did they do today. You can even monitor where they went, where they walked to, what they did, some things like that. And obviously these go up quite a bit in price as you get to them. This is another one that you can even you can kind of read, if you can read the picture there, it has all sorts of different options for the person. Again, this gets into a little bit of, can they operate this technology? Can they understand it? It's fairly simple to most of us, but if anybody has any kind of cognitive or dementia, things like that, and oftentimes I've had a few seniors kind of look at these things and just say, no, I don't want to use it, just because it's something strange and that they're not used to. But like I say, there's new products, by the way, coming out all the time. But like I say, you can very much monitor not only if the person's fallen. My dad had a thing where he was wandering, so they put the little bracelet on him on his ankle, kind of like what they do with prisoners when you're under home arrest, so they would know if he went outside the building and things like that. So they have a lot of different kinds of monitoring systems. Now, there's always got to be somebody, when you're doing this, there's a service you're paying for. Somebody is sitting there, kind of watching this 24/7 if somebody's fallen or whatnot. And I'm going to talk more about the medications as well. I have a whole nother section on that, because that's a huge issue that I observed, was how do people monitor their medications and things like that. The other part of just being safe in their home, and obviously this does not meet any standard that I know of, is the physical access to their home. Is it accessible? Some things like that. Obviously, there's a lot of ways to put ramps into a home, and different little threshold ramps for smaller ramps. Oftentimes we think about these, even the picture shows it for wheelchairs and things like that. But people with mobility issues oftentimes will trip on stairs and steps and things like that. So even if somebody's walking, say, with a cane, sometimes using a ramp is safer than if they can't, especially if they have any kind of visual thing for trying to step over a doorstep and things like that. But obviously there's a lot of different kinds of ramps. I also put this one in because a lot of the seniors, not a lot, some of the seniors that I have worked with live in mobile home parks. I discovered you don't call them trailers, they're mobile home parks. And if they get to the point to where they need some sort of a ramp if they're in a wheelchair, particularly they can't navigate the steps, this is a nice option because just if you want to know, the code to a ramp is 1 in 12. For every inch you go up, you got to go out about a foot. And that doesn't even include the landings. So most mobile homes are 30 to 36 inches off the ground, which is that's like a 50-foot ramp by the time you put landings in. And a lot of times they're limited in the space they have. So this is just a mini little elevator, if you will, so the footprint isn't nearly as large, but it does work fairly well. It's reasonably portable. It does have to be on a concrete pad, but if they move to a different trailer, there's a good chance you kind of have to unbolt this, but it can be moved. It's not necessarily a permanent structure. So. The other big issue that I see for safety when living in a person's home is in the bathroom. I don't mean this as a bad pun, but there's a lot of accidents that happen in the bathroom. That's probably the #1 place another bad pun, that people have falls and things like that. And almost invariably, when I see somebody in a home, this is what they've got. They've got the typical little shower chair that says, okay, fine, this is what their insurance, Medicare, Medi-Cal, whatever, will pay for or get them. And big issue that I see with this is just now you still have to step over that tub lip to get in and out. There's grab bars and things like that. But I'm not necessarily a big fan of these. I think there's other options. This is just another example, little better one, but you still have to step over that tub lip, and if you're wet and whatnot, that can be very difficult. So different kind of grab bars that are available. These are kind of nice if you're in a assisted living place because they're not bolted to the wall. It does just attach to the lip of the tub and can be moved, things like that. I like this style a little better. You cannot have, you have to have shower curtain. You can't have the doors. But at least something like this, not the best picture, I'm sorry, is the person can sit on the outside. They do have to slide themselves over, but at least then they're not having to step over the lip of the tub, and things like that. The first thing was just a chair that's inside a tub, and most of the tubs have a lip on them. And you still have that issue of stepping over the tub lip. There are some that have a track, but I'm showing right now is a track system that it extends out over the tub wall so the person can sit on the outside of the tub. So this has a track that slides across the tub wall. A person sits on essentially the outside of the tub. They can sit down. This thing slides across, so they do have to lift their legs over the tub wall, but they're not standing and trying to step over the tub wall. What's nice, at least they're in a seated position when they're doing this, so it greatly reduces the chance of any kind of falls and whatnot. There are also other ones. Even this one's even a little bit better. Again, not the best picture. So, but this one, the advantage, it's still a rail system that sits inside the tub and extends out over the tub wall, but it also has I hate to get so graphic here, but it has an area, the seat has a cutout in it, so it's easy to clean your groin and areas like that, which the other one just had a regular seat, which makes it hard to clean that area. And so this one has an opening that makes it easier for the person or even for the caregiver to clean and whatnot. So there are a number of options, and like I say, the #1 place in any home where most accidents happen is in the bathroom. So This is just another picture of another one, and sometimes in some homes people don't have enough room to have the part of the slide that extends out over the tub wall, just because if they have a very small bathroom, they make one that kind of fits inside the tub. It still slides back and forth, and essentially you kind of sit on the edge of the tub, but you're not on the edge of the tub. You sit on it's above the tub wall, and there's a seat there. You sit on that seat, it pivots, and then you can slide across. Again, you're in a seated position, and you do have to be able to get your legs over the tub wall, but again, you're seated, so you're not standing when you're trying to get into the tub. And these are obviously only good for taking a shower. These do not go down into the tub if somebody actually wants to take a bath. These are for, and most people with these get the long extended shower wand type of devices to shower themselves and things. And again, the reason, because this extends out and clamps onto the tub wall, you can't have shower doors. You have to have a shower curtain, which is usually a pretty easy thing to replace. Even if you have the doors that slide, they usually pop off pretty easy, and it's easy to put a shower curtain in there.
Question, Jeff?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Getting specific, I had a call just yesterday from someone who has a large jacuzzi tub. It might be 4 feet across. They're wondering about a transfer bench that extends all the way across, and I'm blind, so I think you're just describing one of those legless shower benches that just kind of straddles the two tub surfaces, wall side surfaces.
Well,
is there one that would go 3 or 4 feet across?
I don't know if it would go 3 or 4 feet. These do extend out. I just went back to a picture, and the rail system telescopes, so you do have some adjustability there. I have not seen one that 4 feet is pretty far to go.
Exactly.
And most of them, I think, and this is where I'm sorry you asked an engineer this question, is structurally, I think that would be hard to cover that long of a distance. You'd need some pretty strong bars, and also it depends on the weight of the person. I don't know how heavy they are. But back to, is this something is this so it's a jacuzzi tub, but now and what's got me confused is just with the jacuzzi tub, these things don't put somebody down in the tub. You're sitting
Correct.
in a seat and
they would be showers.
Across.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
And this would be a showering situation, not a bathing.
Okay.
What I have seen, I've seen portable shower transfer benches where there's no legs; they just sit.
Yes.
It sits on the tub wall and then across to the inside lip, and then there's little adjustable sliders underneath that actually wedge the.
Yes. They wedge between the two
tub
tub walls.
Slide off, and they're about 32 inches long. I'm wondering, is there anything that's like 48 or 50 inches long that would be of that type of thing, like a plank to go across?
Yeah, I have not seen anything that long. I don't know if they have a way you can contact me offline. I'll give you my information, and I can look into it. And if you've got email, you can send me an email, and I can shoot you. I haven't seen anything that long. Again, I think just because you would need something very much sturdier than what we've got here, just because the distance you're trying to travel. That being said, though, if it wedges in there, because most of these don't have a support like in the middle, they have a support at either end. I'm just wondering if somebody has one that if it has a support in the middle, maybe then. But it's pretty specific because that's an unusual request. Can I ask, why do they have to get all the way to the other side of the jacuzzi tub? I mean, can they just get? I mean, this would get them in. Is there a reason they want to get completely on the other side?
That was my same question, and their answer was the OT suggested it. So the occupational therapist.
Therapist, yeah.
Well,
I do
that's
know,
okay.
Yeah.
This is enough of a rabbit trail on this one. But
okay,
I just
well, no,
to
that's okay. But I'll just give out my email address. I'm going to say it, and I'll give you my phone number, my office number as well, because I don't know if that information is available to everybody. But my email, well, the company name is Jeff Simons Consulting, and I know that's not very original. And Simons is S-Y-M-O-N-S. But you go to the website, there's a way to email me. But the email address is jtsymons@sbcglobal.net. Again, jtsymons@sbcglobal.net. My office number is 916-933-2375. And you're welcome to contact me. I can do some quick research and see if I can find anything. I'm more than happy to do that. So, this next slide shows something that a lot of you may have seen on TV. It's the tub that has a little door that swings open. You see it, I guess I see it late night when I'm watching TV. And they kind of target it towards seniors, saying, oh, well, you don't have to step over the tub wall. You open this door, and then you have to kind of, you can shut the door to get in and sit down. There's still a lip to step over. Not necessarily, I shouldn't say a big fan of these. They're not the cheapest thing in the world. And if you want to take sit in a tub, you still have to kind of, you have to sit in the water, close this door, fill it all the way up. But then to get out of it, you also have to drain all the water, you realize, because you can't open the door while there's water in there. Otherwise, you would have just flooded your bathroom. So anyway, but these are other options that are out there. There are the other kind of devices that I'm showing a picture of one that now, this has got a bench that goes all the way, just all the way across the tub, but it will lower down into the tub. So if somebody wants to take a bath, this is a device that will enable them to lower down and take a bath. Some people do have some reasons, medically even, for taking a bath and things like that. But I will continue on here. The other big area that I see problems in home or even in, honestly, assisted living is transfer aids. Picking up a person and moving them is just not the easiest thing. I also deal with hospitals that have zero patient handling. So varying kind of transfer boards, sliding boards. This little BZ transfer has a little disc in it. Frankly, the disc isn't really large enough to get most people's caboose on it, but it does kind of work. But these really only work if you're transferring somebody fairly level from one surface to the other. If you're going up or down, these are just boards that just kind of bridge between like a wheelchair and a bed. Is typically what they do. These are kind of the basic kind of transfer things that a lot of people get. The other thing that a lot of people get is the Hoyer lift type of device. And this is probably the worst picture I could show. I'm not a big fan of these Hoyer lifts. When I say that, I don't sell them, but I see a lot of them in people's homes that end up sitting out, on their patio and they're hanging clothes off of it or something. These work pretty well in a hospital, but the sling system can be hard. The other issue you have in a lot of homes that makes, depending on the weight of the person and things, is the carpet. If you're on any kind of thick carpet at all, trying to roll somebody in one of these things is not the easiest thing. The other thing that I have to try to look at is not just the safety of the person being transferred, but also the person doing the transfer, the caregiver and whatnot, because there's a lot of issues with people transferring somebody and having their back go out because it's not an easy thing to do. There are various types of patient transfer lifts. Some are portable. The one I'm showing right now folds up, so you can kind of slide it, but it's not meant for, and I think it's got a limit of about 300 pounds, or maybe it's 250. But it is nice because it's a little bit more compact and folds up than some of the other ones, which when I'm working with a lot of people, usually a lot of times they're in apartments or things like that, or smaller places. Space is always kind of a premium, and where are you going to put this thing when you're not using it? Here's another patient lift that, yes, I would agree. Somebody just put a comment there. It's a good lift for a hospital, but not for a home. Yeah, hospitals have wide doorways and they have linoleum floors, so they roll pretty well. It doesn't take much carpet to make those things hard to roll and things. This patient lift here doesn't require a sling. It kind of has these little bars, little straps that go under your arms and under your legs. And of course they have a beautiful girl here in it, which I don't think she's really using it. The issue with these, because I've tried them, they do tend to squeeze a person when they lift up. The arms kind of come in, and the person will feel like they're getting squeezed a little bit. There is one lift actually I do like, and it's called a Brianna Junior. It's by Apex. Now it's not portable. What I like about it, it sits against a wall, and basically it's still a sling system, and it's good for what I call single point transfers, which usually most people, you're transferring from the bed to a wheelchair, or maybe the bed to a commode chair, or bed to a shower chair. It's not on wheels. It sits against the wall, and it doesn't bolt to anything. It has kind of a T-frame base where part of the T is against the wall, the other part is right along the side of the bed, so it doesn't take up a lot of space inside a place. It's not bolted to anything. Like I said, I see a lot of people that are in apartments, things like that, then either the landlord or whoever doesn't want something bolted to the wall. The other thing that I like about this is that it doesn't, if there's carpet, you basically, it still has a sling. Once you pick the person up, the caregiver just really swings them out over the bed, and then they can lower them down. So they're not rolling them on any kind of carpet or things like that. It's just one that I have recommended. It's been hard to find vendors that carry it, but it has been one that I have recommended for a number of people that I've seen. There are also overhead lifts that you can buy. There are overhead lifts you can get. Again, these don't bolt to the wall. They're pretty pricey. What it basically shows is you've got and again, these are probably good for single point transfer. When I say that, I mean from like bed to a chair or things like that. It's a rail system that's supported by two legs on either side, and basically you can slide. The rail slides back and forth. They work very well, but they're fairly expensive. And again, my job is always trying to look at most appropriate but least cost. The other issue you have a lot with these things, especially when I'm dealing with the seniors, is the funding of most of these devices, because their insurance really will only fund kind of the basic stuff. I don't see them funding a lot of other more expensive stuff and things like that. So, and there are also overhead lifts you can get that are tracks that are mounted into the ceiling. You know, if it's your home and you're going to be there for forever, you can get a track system that will. I've seen them run all over the house pretty much. You can get, you know, to tub, to toilet, to bed, and all that. But they're fairly pricey. The other thing I see for in-homes is sometimes if they have stairs, there are the various kind of stair lifts that I think most people might be familiar with. That just is a little rail system that sits on the side, and they can kind of go up and down. There's even some that are for if somebody's in a wheelchair. They have a large enough platform for that. This next slide is now I'm kind of moving away from the safety kind of issue. I am going to talk about medications a little bit, but health and wellness, and this is where the medications are going to come in, because this is another, as I see it, a big piece of the puzzle, and it shows a puzzle piece. So medication, this is something I can speak from a personal perspective, because my dad had Parkinson's, and he had probably 20 different medications. And you could take some with certain things, some this time of day, some that time, and it was quite complicated to kind of figure out his medications and things. And my mom, having dementia, trying to remind her to take his things. We actually went through different kinds of reminders. What I'm showing right here is pretty much the basic simple pill box. They've added a little thing to it, but basically it's the blue. If I've seen them, they're generally blue. And it's got, like, usually Sunday, it's got a whole week's worth, and sometimes you can get them, they're 2 weeks worth, Sunday through Saturday, and then at the top there's morning, noon, evening, and bedtime, and there's little boxes that you open for each one, and they're just a pill reminder. And I will tell you, we tried different kind of reminders and different things. We went back to this as it was the easiest thing for my mom, who was trying to give my dad his medications for a long time, to see. The other thing is we could monitor when she missed, like, all of a sudden you'd look in Wednesday at noon and all the pills were still there. Somehow she forgot to give him on that day. The other thing I'll let you know, kind of the reason a lot of times with the pills, not just kind of, you kind of look at this thing and think it's pretty simple. Sometimes the medications will say such a thing as take an hour before lunch, and if you miss it, then take 2 hours after lunch. Well, in my experience, especially with my parents, you know, they would forget the hour before, and oh, we'll take it 2 hours after, and they would, again, because it was 3 hours later, they would again forget that. But I'm showing there are a number of devices that have reminders. You can program in the time of day you want this alarm to go off to remind someone to take their pills and things like that. And one of them I kind of laughed at initially because it shows a large number of pills in these 2 boxes. And I can tell you my parents probably took easily that number of pills. But again, it was a matter of somebody sitting there programming this device, and then the variability of when they're scheduled. They didn't eat breakfast always at the same time, or they went out to lunch or dinner, things like that, that tended to, if you said go off at 5:30, well, if they weren't going to eat that night till 7 or something, it didn't always work well for them. There are even some in the upper left. This is one that actually dispenses the medications for you. I think I have another picture of it or something. Yes. They have them that will actually, so somebody can't take too many medications if that's the issue, or basically, and again, you kind of need somebody, the nurse or somebody, to program this thing. So at that time of day, they basically hit a button, and only the medications that are supposed to come out come out. Again, like I say, we tried varying versions of all these things, and even with my parents with caregivers, it never seemed to work. The simple blue box, sometimes low tech. I like technology, but sometimes low technology is the simplest solution than some of these other fancier kinds of things and whatnot. There's even wristwatch. And the other thing on this show is showing a wristwatch that can be programmed. Again, you need somebody to program that when to go off, and generally, in my experience, that's not the person using it. That's a caregiver or somebody else. So, the other part of health and wellness is fitness. This is actually an assisted living place, but and it's Wii. It's the game that you buy for your kids, where you can play baseball or bowl or do whatever kinds of things with your TV and things. It's been a great thing for social and for a little bit of exercise for not only my parents but for other people to have that. The getting out, the social part, and exercise was a huge issue for both my parents. Not only just socially to get out and see some friends, but just for their own physical well-being, to stay active as possible. At the end, my dad was bedridden and couldn't get out and do anything, and I think that's why he went downhill quite quickly. But there are a number of exercising kinds of things. We bought one of these things for my dad. It's a little thing that sits in front of a chair, and it's got a couple pedals on it, and so he could still ride his bike from his chair, sitting down and getting some sort of exercise, because as he got more and more, as the Parkinson's progressed more and more, his mobility was more and more compromised, and he wasn't able to stand and walk safely, and he was more in a wheelchair. So we were trying to keep him as physically active as we could, just to kind of keep him just for his own health and things like that. The other big issue with my parents and also with my in-laws was communication and just getting out to see people. And I kind of, those that missed the beginning of this, I kind of talked about the social part of when you're in your own home, and generally their friends were elderly. It was harder for their friends to come and visit them and whatnot. So just my parents moved to assisted living primarily because they weren't seeing their friends anymore, and so this was a way they could be with people their own age, and they had a lot of activities and things like that. Again, I know this is titled Staying in Your Own Home, but I think there's a transition in a lot of the technology that applies to staying in a home also applies to assisted living. There are cell phones that are like the Jitterbug that has large buttons on it, and fairly simple to use, not all the complicated things of like an iPhone or things like that. But there are a lot of different phones out there that are available. The simpler the better. My mom still really can't operate hers, but she does know if she presses number 2 on it, it calls my cell phone and things like that. She can't half the time figure out how to answer it. Anyway, there are cell phones. There are obviously large button phones, and there are phones for people that are hearing impaired as well that have amplification as well as other, like the picture here shows a large button phone. It also has an LED display, and it's also has, it's hard to see, but it also has an amplifier for somebody that's hearing impaired as well. I was going to, a little bit, because there's a lot of things on, I see people as they get older hearing impaired. This just shows a device called the Pocket Talker, which is for somebody that's hearing impaired. This helps just, if, you know, in personal communication if they can't hear, or they do have microphones you can kind of plug in if they're in like a group setting and things like that. There's basically, how this works is there's a transmitter on a receiver, and you could put, like, if we're in a conference room, you put the one part in the middle of the room with the microphone plugged into it, and then the receiver part the person wears with either some sort of a headset, and it sends a signal right to them. Now, it does amplify all sound. It doesn't filter out anything. But I thought I had a picture. Oh, here, I jumped 2 slides ahead. I'll come back. There also are things just for the TV that you can get that will just amplify the TV sound, so that somebody doesn't have to turn up the TV so loud that it wakes the neighbors and things like that. There are, like I say, there are a number of devices for that. And I skipped a slide here. There are also devices when you're in your own home that will, like if the doorbell rings or the phone rings, it will signal the person. Now, generally, they have to be wearing, they can either have an auditory, some loud sound is made, or they wear some sort of a vibrating pager or some sort of a pager, which they have to remember to wear, obviously. But it will send a signal that if the doorbell went off, or if the phone goes off, or a smoke alarm, that it will signal them that, hey, and usually what it has like a green light or some sort of light that goes on, and to let them know what alarm or what item is going off. So, and there are a large number of these available. So, the other thing that has been nice about some of the technology these days is, and it's been nice, I can tell you, for my parents keeping in contact with people. This slide shows a picture of a woman Skyping. She's in, I don't know where Flushing, Queens is, but she's Skyping with her family in Hong Kong, which has been a great way for people to stay in contact with each other. I have a brother who lives in Dallas and a sister that's in Costa Rica, and I bring it over, but my mom can Skype with them so she can physically see them and talk to them, and it's been a great way for her to stay connected to people. And a lot of places have this type of assisted living places have this available to people. You have to kind of sign up for it and things like that. But again, in a home, any personal computer will obviously be able to run this, but it's a nice way to enable, they can't travel as much or things like that, to enable them to stay connected. Tablets are a great thing if you can get someone to learn how to use them.
This is Jeff.
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Taryn with
Taryn.
Current Assisted Tech Center.
Yes.
And I'm just curious, the senior citizens, I understand that, you know, are they going to understand Skype and how it works, and, you know, how to answer, and how they do that in their home?
Usually, great question. The question was, how does a senior citizen know how to Skype in their home? Most of the time, there's probably somebody, it's, in my opinion, now, if they're pretty technically savvy, you might be able to do it, and it's pretty easy on a tablet. Like I said, a tablet's a little bit easier, but honestly, in my opinion, usually it's a caregiver or somebody is setting that up. And they may not have caregiving 24/7. I can kind of tell, I'm going to jump off the thing. I can tell you, my parents, when they had caregiving, as soon as they needed caregiving at night, it became cost prohibitive, and that's why they moved into assisted living, because it was actually cheaper. But yeah, generally there's somebody else there setting that up, in my experience. The people, it's probably not something they do themselves. The easiest technology to do that with would be a tablet, because generally they just have to hit Skype and one other button. a PC or even a Mac is a little bit harder to do. But yeah, it's probably not something, and if I didn't make that clear, it's probably something somebody's helping them with, not doing themselves. So
yeah, that's
again,
fine. I understand. I just was curious of, yeah, you know, because there's a video phone like I'm using, and then with the senior citizens, it seems like, you know, probably 75 to 78, they just struggle with how to use it. It takes a lot of time. They get confused on which buttons to use, and I've been teaching them, and it seems like later on, you know, something will start flashing, and then, you know, the call will come in, and they kind of don't know, you know, which that's a concern of mine. But you're just saying that, you know, if it's like, you know, assisted technology or whatever, or the assisted living, but it's just kind of, you know, and what if the nurse is busy,
well, yeah,
you know, you just kind of have to know it's the same thing all the time and everything, so.
Your experience and mine are the same. I mean, I had things where I would put a large red dot on a button and say, Mom, all you got to do is hit this button right here to do it. And still, that was just for whatever reason, something would happen and whatnot. So your experience and mine are the same in that it is. And then the other thing is, especially as their memory starts going, what you find, you teach them one day and you think they got it, the next day they completely forget about it. Like I say, my mom has pretty serious dementia, and we have the same conversations probably 5 or 6 times within 10 minutes because she's forgotten. So that makes it really hard. But like I say, it's generally something I see somebody else setting up, but enables them to have a social, get contact, and physically see, like I say, you know, Skyping to somebody in Hong Kong or North Korea or whatever, you know, not North Korea, I mean Costa Rica. You know, it's just a nice way to keep them in contact with people. So here's a woman using an iPad, so it is, again, it kind of depends on the person.
Okay, thanks, Jeff.
Sure. Oh, no problem. Thank you. I realize I'm getting to the end of my, I'm almost in. Anyway, there's a lot of technology out there. This slide here shows, you know, you can get keyboards with larger buttons. You know, we all know, I think most of us know that, the larger key buttons, the big keys, different things like that, that might help somebody if they can't physically see the keyboards and things. You can get keyboards that are lighted. This is one I actually got from Fry's. I only show it because I've had a number of seniors who really like it. It's only like $30 or something, and you can actually change the colors. You hit a button and it goes from blue to purple to, I think that's white or whatever it is, but it's not terribly expensive. I threw this in there because a lot of times when you're going, as we all know, if you go to assistive technology, it's pretty expensive, but sometimes your local stores, I don't know if everybody has a Fry's, but it's an electronics place. You can go online, they're there, but there are other options out there. I threw this one in because I saw a gentleman who was still using a computer. He was in assisted living, but more or less was in his own home too. Could have been. But he had difficulty using the mouse because he started shaking a lot. He was having a little bit of Parkinson's and shaking and couldn't get to where he wanted. This picture is just a standard trackball. It's not anything fancy or anything like that. But I brought various things out to have him try different, because that was the main issue. He could still type okay and do that. He was just having a hard time using the mouse, because the other part is with his hand shaking, when he got to where he wanted and he tried to hit the button, he would move the mouse. The advantage to this trackball is, what's nice is you roll it around, then to physically hit the button, he has to take his hand off the ball and then hit the button. And you can have it be click or double click. So anyway, I threw it in there because it did work in one of the cases for a senior that was working. This is my last section. We're almost done, so that works out good. Last piece of the puzzle that I looked at was kind of independence and fun, and we're always talking about independence, but I was talking specifically about what I call activities of daily living. There are a lot of different little doodads out there. The first one I'm showing, and I've had a lot of people, it's called a sock assist. It's basically to help somebody put their socks on. It does work pretty well. Basically, you put the sock on this little sleeve, you kind of drop it on the ground, and you slide your foot into it, and then it's got 2 little straps, and you can pull this, as you pull the straps up, the sock comes off, comes up, not comes off, sorry. But yeah, so it does work. Like I say, there's a lot of things that as people get older, they have a hard time doing some simple little tasks. Like I say, sometimes putting your socks on. There are various types of reachers out there that I think we all kind of know about and different options. The other thing that I threw in here, because there are devices you can get to, if you lose your keys or lose anything, it's basically a little, you hit a beeper and it will beep. I can tell you how many times my mom has lost her keys or lost her purse, and we have one of these now, and I have a separate one so that when she loses it, because sometimes she loses the little control thing, I basically can go, okay, where's this beeping at? Now, it only helps if it's kind of in her home or her facility. If she left it at the restaurant, that doesn't necessarily help me out. But it is nice because you will find that, and you can attach these to a lot of different things other than just keys, or have one inside a purse or things like that. But anyway, they're electronic key locators, and there's a large number of different ones out there. I will say the nice thing kind of about Yelp and some of the internet things, you can kind of go and read reviews about them, and which kind of gives you people's other who have tried them, if they liked them or not, some things like that. Reachers I kind of went through. Another ADL thing, there are various things if somebody still wants to cook and be able to do things. This picture shows somebody using kind of an adaptive knife, which is a little bit safer, but it also has, it's a little hard to see, but a vice grip, kind of like, it's meant for a kitchen, that basically it's holding down a loaf of bread for this person, but you can basically use this to hold something down and then you know, have them cut, so they don't have to hold something and cut at the same time. And another big issue is jar openers. Again, I'm not supposed to have biases, but this is a Black & Decker electric jar opener. And my mother-in-law, she had a severe arthritis and you know, had a hard time opening any kind of jars and things like this. And this seemed to work reasonably well for most jars and bottles and things like that. Not all of them, but it worked well for most of the ones that she was having to open and things. So. There are also safety devices for in the home. This thing's called a stove guard that will kind of sense if for some reason they have accidentally left the stove on, they forgot to turn off a burner or something like that. This mounts above the stove, and it basically will shut off the stove, or it will remind them that the stove is on and come turn it off, kind of thing. So there are a number of safety, and this is actually by a company, it says it right there, Thingestic. I don't know if I can say that right, but there are different ones. There's also, I see the other thing with my mom and elderly things is being able to get out and play games and do things. There are large print games out there. I can tell you in most assisted living places they play a lot of bingo. I think it's a pretty simple game and they enjoy it, but they do have, you know, large print cards and large print, you know, regular deck of cards and things like that. There are also handheld magnifiers. This picture shows somebody for medications. This is an electronic one. There are also the handheld ones that generally have just one magnification works, but this has the ability to zoom in, zoom out. A little bit pricier, but it works fairly well for reading medications and labels and things like that. I've had a number of seniors who are still doing shopping that use something like this when they go to the store. The nice thing, if they can operate an iPhone, there's an app for it as well that you can get, but the issue there is if they can operate an iPhone and know how to use it. This is pretty simple to use option. And I already showed that slide. And are there basically there's just I can't tell you that I know all the technology that's out there because there's new stuff coming all the time. But it's nice. There's a lot of resources. And it's nice that there are a lot of different products that are out there and things like that. Are there any other questions that people have? Any questions? The question is, are there any resources that help pay for these items? Yeah, that's a great question, Melody. I won't call you Melody number 2. I have not, I mean, it kind of depends, and I'll probably more even say not that many that I have found. Insurance, like I say, I wish I could get them, have them buy, they give everybody a Hoyer lift in their home if they're having issues, and half the time they never work, but they won't, like, here, take that back, and can we get something that will work or some things like that. No, I have not found a good source. Usually when I'm going out to see these people, it's the family members, and that's why I try to educate them on the price of the different things. There's this device that costs this, there's this device that costs that, and here's what they do, and it's up for them to decide. But yeah, no, unfortunately I have not. Now the telephone stuff I think is covered, at least in California. We have the CTAP program, and there are some ways to get some of these things. But like the monitoring things and the pill things, generally no, those are not things that I have not seen covered by insurance. So yeah, that's it. That is a huge issue. There's this great technology out there, but how do we get it funded? Especially because some of these people are definitely have limited income. Now another question: sometimes independent living centers have funds, so that's a great resource if they do. Ricky said that. So if independent living centers do have some funds, or sometimes there's the loan libraries. I don't know how long they will loan things for. But sometimes they have some technology that can be loaned for a certain amount of time to various people and things like that. I do know it's unusual. There's an Alzheimer's place here in Sacramento that has a huge volume of durable medical equipment places, durable medical equipment like wheelchairs and transfer aids and different things that they will loan out to somebody if they have Alzheimer's. They've loaned me a few things to try with clients and things, but it's only for somebody with Alzheimer's, and it's kind of just a long-term loan till as long as they need it. So, any other questions? You can always contact me offline, email me, call me. Great. I thank you very much for everybody today. Thank you.